Melting glaciers, rising sea levels, and rapid warming of our planet from climate change, and what that means for human civilization remains an unanswered question, and the topic of discussion in the upcoming Carta Symposium, Human Climate Interactions and Evolution, Past and Future. Joining me with the highlights is Charles Kennel, Distinguished Professor of Atmospheric Science at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And Professor Kennel, this symposium will present various perspectives on critical questions from a wide range of scientists. What are some of the key areas of discussion?
Well, at Scripps we've spent most of the last 50 years studying present climate and how it's changing at present, and we're trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future. What's going to be so exciting for me is to listen to these great anthropologists tell us how our ancestors adapted to climate changes during the ice ages and the recovery to our present warm period. It's going to be very exciting. They're going to tell us how the human species evolved. They're going to tell us how the climate presented challenges to the earlier communities, how they solved their problems, which ones won, which ones lost, but finally how we got to our present circumstance. And
is there going to be a nugget there on the basic idea that humans are adaptable and maybe perhaps we can adapt to climate change today?
I think the theme is going to be that our earliest ancestors adapted to tremendous climate change and they survived. And we're facing climate change of an entirely different type because we are in a warm period already and we're going to warm up. We're not in the ice ages. So it's going to be different. And it's going to be different because we're a planet chock full of people, whereas they lived in dispersed communities. But the hope is that what we find from the past is the challenges of climate change brought forth creative responses from our ancestors, and they're going to bring forth a creative response from us once we settle down and think about it.
Let's talk about what you're lecturing on, which is the impacts of Arctic sea ice, the retreat, on contemporary climate. So how does the retreat of Arctic ice impact our temperatures and drought?
It's rather interesting because when the sea ice retreats, you replace white ice with blue ocean. And as you know, dark surfaces warm up, so that when the sea ice retreats, there's an unprecedentedly rapid warming in the Arctics. And this warming changes the circulation of the atmosphere, the heat in the atmosphere, and it affects us all.
Including the drought, I understand.
Yes.
Now, you've said we have between 30 and 40 years to figure out how to live on this path of climate change. What do you think this adaptability in the next 30 to 40 years could look like?
It's going to call forth all kinds of creative responses. Mostly you hear about how we need to restructure our energy system to burn less fossil fuel. But actually, climate change, anything that you do that makes your life more efficient is going to help us with climate change because you use up energy. And so I think you're going to find all sorts of creative responses. You're going to find people thinking in new ways about the impacts of sea level rise, how they're going to rebuild when the ocean comes, or how they're going to prepare for it. And people are already beginning to think, and 25 or 30 years from now, you'll see the product of that thinking.
Recently, climate scientists announced that we've surpassed 400 parts per million of CO2 in the Earth's atmosphere. Are we at a point of no return as far as the impact and being able to reverse or stop this?
Nobody knows. Everybody talks about it. They worry about a tipping point in the climate. Are we going to come close? And I think at the present time, it's a possibility. We have to be very careful. But right now, I don't think there's any evidence that we're approaching one. But we are getting warmer.
Now, you did touch on this. Your advice to San Diegans who say, listen, this problem's too big. I'm not a big industrial putting out CO2. Right. How can I handle this? How can I help?
I think well, first of all, for reducing carbon, it's important to vote for the right policies to reduce our energy, our fossil fuel burning. But when it comes to adaptation, that's a community issue. Every community is different. They're going to have different impacts. Just look at how different the climate is today. So every community is going to experience different change, and it's going to be up to them to figure out how to adapt. And that is where the creative challenge will be.
And individuals themselves?
And individuals themselves, everything you do that makes your life more efficient, will help on climate change.
All right, Professor Charles Kennel, thank you very, very much. And I want to let folks know that the Human Climate Interaction Symposium at the Salk Institute is this Friday at 1 p.m. It's open to the public but requires reservations. More information at kpbs.org.